Well, this has been a good week. I get to talk about One Piece twice. So, on top of the news of the live action movie, we actually found out there's going to be a new One Piece animated movie, which I think this movie was actually first announced in around 2019, but we didn't have any news on it until recently. I wanted to wait until there was actually some type of description before I actually talked about it. But One Piece Film Red has now been officially announced. Director, writer, and original story by Ichiro Oda. So, Oda's a producer on this one, but he did write the story, and this movie actually has a lot of people excited. Now, I'm one of those sort of on the skeptical side about this movie because One Piece movies tend to not be canon. They tend to just be a lot of fun. But with a movie directly involving Shanks, what I want is for this movie to be canon, like 100% canon, similar to Strong World and some of the stuff in Film Z and Stampede. But instead of like just one singular thing, like in Strong World, we got Shiki, or in film Z we had not Z. I mean, in Stampede we had Douglas Bullitt explaining us the actual name of Raftel, which was Laftel. I want something actually fully canon. Like what I want this movie to be is sort of that Oda probably realizes he doesn't have time to fully flesh out Shank's character, and that Shank's character story is probably going to be coming to an end. Not necessarily immediately after Wano, but sometime soon after Wano, because obviously Shanks and Blackbeard are on a collision course, and eventually Blackbeard will have to defeat Shanks to motivate Luffy to come fight him, basically. So Shanks' story will be coming to an end soon, and I don't know if the manga will have time to flesh out his backstory before we get to that in-game war. So I'm thinking that this movie could exist to be a prequel story to Shanks. Now, that's what I would hope. Like that's a hope. More than likely, this movie will probably somehow combine maybe a story from Shanks, maybe a backstory where the Straw Hats like learn a bit about him from meeting a character or fighting a villain, or it could be that like Shanks and the Straw Hats have to team up, one of the two. But I really hope it's not. The only reason I say it's most likely going to be one of these is because you can't have a One Piece movie without the Straw Hats. Like I don't think Shanks himself is enough to sell a movie, because though hardcore fans would love to see it, it's not something that like casual One Piece audiences would go out of their way to see, because it would be all deep lore and backstory for a build up of something that hasn't happened yet, aka Shanks' most likely death coming in the manga sometime. But what we do know about Film Red is that the main antagonist is this girl. Well, she's most likely the main antagonist. There was a tweet from Oda stating that he's tired of drawing elderly, legendary men as villains in movies. People like Shiki, or like the villain from Strong World, or Douglas Bullitt. Like, he's sick of drawing them, so he wanted to draw a female character. She seems to be some type of singer, or maybe she's a siren. That could possibly be it. But looking at her wing shape, she could also be a Skypian or a Bjerken. I've been looking at the wings a lot. I think they look more like Bjerken wings, which means they weren't all wiped out by an L, so that's pretty interesting if she is actually a Bjerken. But she's probably going to be the main villain. And like I said, what I want from this movie and what I'll probably get are very different things. Although, interesting enough, the director of this movie did come out and say that he was going to be looking at the deep, rich lore of One Piece and the past movies, but he wanted to do something different. And since most of the past movies have not been canon, it could be that he wants to use the rich lore of the world and make a canon movie. And if this is a movie about Shanks, which we already know it is, being that the red has Shanks' three-pronged scar that he got from Blackbeard in it, then we know he's going to be at least a major part in this movie, or plot point, or driving point. So if they did wanted to make a perfectly backstory movie for Shanks, this would be the time. Like, this would be the perfect time to do it. Like, they could have the Straw Hats in it, maybe, and just sort of like reading about Shanks' backstory or experiencing some stuff from it, but have it mostly focus on past flashbacks. I'd be down for that, but again, what it's more than likely is, more than likely it'll be either a Shanks and Luffy team up, or a Luffy meets a character about Shanks' past and sort of has to go and like help this character or experience or fight this character, similar to the Shiki story, being he's part of Roger's past. Or it could be a, I really hope it's not this one, a Shanks gets captured and by this person from his past, and the Straw Hats have to go save him. Oh, please don't let it be that one. Shanks doesn't get to do enough in the series as it is, so I'd hate for his movie to have him being the damsel in distress character. That would really suck. But there's a lot to be excited about this movie, especially if they're willing to take the plunge on shifting. If they're willing to take the risk of shifting the focus off the Straw Hats and putting it on to Shanks and make him the main character of this movie. There's a lot of potential because there's a lot that we haven't seen in the story between the death of Goldie Roger and Shanks in the very first episode of the series. There's a whole lot of history there missing because we know that Shanks was at least Yonko level by the time he was stationed where he met Luffy in the East Blue. So there's a whole lot we could see within this movie, such as the clashes with Mihawk, him recruiting and, making the Red Hair Pirates, his farewell to Roger, a bit more on him and Rayleigh. There's probably a lot more that we could see there's a lot more about Shanks in general that we haven't got to see yet, that we all just speculate on. Maybe it'll explain to why Shanks can just sort of walk into the Gorosei and say, "Sup, I have something to say." Like, how could a pirate go talk to the leaders of the world government? That'd be good to know. Then there's the big obvious one here that, like, this could be that if it's going to touch on any plot point, it may touch on Shanks' full name. Something in the series that we don't know. See, a lot of characters, we know their full name if it's important. Like, we know the character's full name. But Shanks is one of those super important characters where we don't know their full name. In fact, he's the only Yonko that we really don't know the full name of. Well, I would say he's the only Yonko that we don't know the full name of, but I don't think we know Kaido's either. But we know Charlotte Linlin, we know Marshall D. Teach, and we know Edward Newgate. But we have no idea what Shanks's is. And this one obviously points to Shanks maybe having a D in his name, aka a Will of D, sort of like Monkey D. Luffy, Monkey D. Garp, Monkey D. Dragon, Marshall D. Teach. Like, the reason a lot of people think this is because the scar is on the D. Either that, or it could reference... So, either it references that Shanks may have the D, like the Will of D, or it could reference maybe we get to see the fight between Shanks and Blackbeard where he's got the scar. Because Shanks did get the scar from Blackbeard, and Blackbeard does have a D in his name, so it's very possible that that could be the storyline that it goes for. And I'd be interested in seeing that because I was wondering if we were going to get that anytime soon. But there's a lot of hype around this movie, even more so than the live action, because... Again, a One Piece movie that doesn't focus on the Straw Hats would be insane if it happened. Now, I'm not saying it will, and I hope it will, and I hope this movie is completely only about Shanks with very little stuff from the Straw Hats except maybe them finding out the story. And I hope there's quite a few at least canon things in it that way we can take away from it and put it to the series. Plus, who knows where we'll be in the story by the time this movie comes out. I mean, it could already be that they'd be setting up the battle between Shanks and Blackbeard by the time this movie releases, since it doesn't release until next August. So I'm really excited about this movie, and I think it's going to be really great. I think it's going to be heavy in lore, and it's going to be interesting to see a One Piece movie with a, female villain, because has One Piece ever had a female villain outside of Big Mom? I can't really think of one, actually. Maybe Alvida in the first episode, but I don't think we count that, so that's also really interesting. Plus, probably a little bit of the, like I said, she could be like a siren. I mean, she has headphones, sort of looks like she's rocking the Hideyoshi style mermaid hair, so Shirahoshi. I mean, I tried to see if I could recognize what her gloves were from, the UTA, but I have no idea what that stands for, and I couldn't find any reference for it in One Piece. I mean, if you guys know something, let me know, because I couldn't find anything for that in particular in One Piece, and I haven't seen any YouTubers talking about it either. But yeah, there's a lot to be excited about this movie, and I think it's going to be probably I would hope it's the most important One Piece movie, and I hope it's more than what Stampede was, because Stampede was cool, and yes, it did give us the actual name of the island that the One Piece was from, but it was more just fan service fighting the whole time. I really didn't take away much from Stampede except turning off my brain and watching the pretty fights. Like, I haven't really overly enjoyed a One Piece movie since Strong World, so I'm hoping that this one will change that. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about with this video, and I'll see you sounding out.